Hello, folks, and welcome to a new episode of Jim's Multimedia Musings, and in particular to episode 4 of Stream It Before It's Gone. Now, okay, I'll admit that this mini series within a series has always been characterized by a bit of hyperbole. I mean, I just read about the fact that Netflix was having some financial difficulties and already assumed the worst. But in this particular case, there is a tiny bit more urgency to the exhortation to stream it before it's gone, because unlike the previous 3 shows, Netflix does not own this show, the show that I'm about to talk about. I'm talking about the 5-season, now defunct sitcom that ran from 2016 to 2021, Kim's Convenience. A a very, a very affecting, very, how shall we say, entertaining and engaging sitcom about a family of Korean immigrants to Toronto, Canada, headed by Sang-il Kim, played by series, co-creator. He's not credited as a creator, but it's basically loosely based on his own family's experience, by Paul Sun-hyung Lee, who's basically the title character, although Kim refers to him and his wife. So Sang-il and his wife Yong-mi, played by Jin Yoon, run the convenience store, and they have adult children. Jung, played by Simu Liu, now known to the world as Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, and Janet, played by Andrea Bang. So Jung works at a car rental, and Janet studies basically in university. And the series basically deals on their dynamics as a family. Sang-il is actually estranged from Jung at the beginning of the series, because Jung basically is a high school dropout. He had a troubled past, all of which is baggage that he comes with when the series opens. And then, of course, Sang-il has, even though he's basically been in Toronto all his children's lives, which spans decades. I mean, there's still so many challenges he's learning to face, he and his wife, and that's what the series is about. It's actually hard to imagine how this series has lasted for so long without falling into too many tropes. But the writers keep things really engaging because, the series also has a very engaging cast of supporting characters. Like Janet's college buddies, Jung's office mates and coworkers, including his boss, whom he has a relationship with. And of course, you have their church group, and you have the people who like to hang out at the convenience store. I mean, it's not just about the Kim family. It's about their interactions, with all these other people, and it's pretty engaging that way. I one thing I really liked about this sitcom, as opposed to something that I grew up with, the Cosby Show, is that you have a sitcom that really goes just beyond the banter of the central characters. That goes well beyond it. I mean, we're talking about, when I was a kid, I grew up with shows like The Cosby Show and The Golden Girls. And while, of course, those shows involve, interaction with all kinds of different people, they really tended to center around the central characters. The sets were usually the houses of the central cast, and as a result, a lot of it rode on, it tended to ride on tropes, like the Cosby Show, for example. I mean, I know we don't really talk about Bill Cosby anymore, but back in the day, one of the central tropes that was constantly a thing in that show was him dealing with some problem that his kids had. And that was it. I mean, there were variations of that, obviously. it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did if that's all it ever did. But yeah, it was just some problems that the kids had. One thing I really like about Kim's Convenience is that it doesn't just lean into the trope of the fact that they're Koreans and it's awkward that they interact, because the show quite wonderfully acknowledges what a melting pot Toronto actually is. You have supporting characters who are Indian Canadian, you have supporting characters who are Chinese Canadian, you have supporting characters who are Filipino Canadian. Yes, Filipino Canadian. And it's not just about the immigrant experience. It's also about people learning things, learning how to overcome biases, learning how to overcome their own mistakes. People learning from their own mistakes. It's it's a wonderfully human show. It's a wonderfully human show, and it's really, and just honestly, I really appreciated the fact that, I mean, to as a bit of a departure from some tropes we've seen in Asian American or Asian Canadian media. Jung is not a hyperachiever. You have the firstborn son into a Korean immigrant family, and he's not a hyperachiever. Rather, he's a troubled youth. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Marvel cast him as Shang-Chi. Actually, and if I may just digress just the tiniest bit, I actually started checking this series out because I wanted to see the body of work of Simu Liu, because I read that he was going to be Shang-Chi, which incidentally I really liked, but I'm not going to talk about that here. And quite frankly, I'm really glad that I did check out this show. I'm really glad that I found it on Netflix. It's quite a lot to binge. I mean, it's 13 episodes, 5 seasons, 5 seasons, 13 episodes per season, and each episode is pretty long. So it's not exactly the kind of thing you can binge in an afternoon. It took me about 3 or 4 days, and that was when I was down with COVID. But anyway, it's worth it though. I mean, some episodes sometimes it feels like they're recycling certain plot points, but they really like to shake things up. They really interact quite extensively with their supporting cast. And it's not afraid to tackle certain things like religion, like like sexuality, and like the various differences between people that need to be worked out. Okay, so yeah, this is quite a departure from the fact that I was talking about up until this episode. I was just talking about cartoon series, but I would highly recommend that you binge this. Especially since, in all sincerity, I don't know how much longer it'll stay on Netflix, because it's not a Netflix show, so one really can't say if it won't end up on Disney Plus, especially since one of the stars is now officially a Disney star, or some other streamer like HBO Max or Peacock or whatever. So yeah, genuinely and sincerely stream this before it's gone from Netflix, because that could genuinely happen. All right. So I still have a couple more episodes in this series within a series to go. I'm really looking forward to presenting the next one to you, because it's a series I also thoroughly enjoyed. Okay, so I hope you come back for my other content. All right.